Did you know that God sent the storm to Jonah, the one that caused him to be tossed into the sea and swallowed by the fish, which God prepared ahead of time? So let's backtrack. Jonah had a gift to use, a gift of prophecy. God told him to go and speak against Nineveh. Jonah fled. Jonah was unwilling to use the gift God gave him. Jonah was disobedient. God sent the storm. So I'm going to read this piece right here. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah arose to flee to Tarshish. Now we go forward to the storm. But the Lord sent out a great wind on the sea. So God sent a storm. And he was on a boat, and they had to literally toss him over in order to get the storm to stop. He said, it's on account of me that you're suffering loss on your vessel. Toss me over and the waters will calm. And they did. And by the way, they turned to God because of it. Fast forward. He's thrown into the sea. And let me find the place where it talks about, here it is. In Jonah 1, verse 17. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. And when he's in there, he's crying out to the Lord. And one of these places says, weeds are wrapped around my head. So he said, the deep closed around me, weeds are wrapped around my head. He had seaweed wrapped around his head. So this is what I wrote. Jonah was disobedient. God wanted to use him. He had the gift that God had given him to use, and he chose to flee rather than obey. So God positioned Jonah in a place where he would listen. He positioned him in a place that he would listen. He was alone. He was stuck. He could not go anywhere. Jonah was being refined. What seemed to be a stuck and lonely and dark place was a refining. And he was safe the whole time. God already had the plan. He was safe in God's hands the whole time. But he had to cry out to God, and he had to repent. And let me see if I can read a little bit here. And this is in chapter 2. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer went up to you into your holy temple. Those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy, but I will sacrifice to you with a voice of thanksgiving. I will pay what I have vowed. Salvation is of the Lord. And when he got finished, this is what was said. So the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land, onto a safe place. And now I'm going to read chapter 3, verse 1 through 3, or part of verse 3. Now, so let's go back first to chapter 1, and let me just tell you. He said, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah arose to flee. Jonah chapter 3. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and preach to it the message that I tell you. So Jonah arose and went to Nineveh. So prior to the storm and the fish that God sent, God told him to go, and he fled. After being vomited onto the dry land, God told him to go, and he went. So why did God send the storm? God sent the storm to work inside of Jonah what Jonah wouldn't accept until he was put in the position to listen. Sometimes God will send a storm to us or an obstacle in order to put us in a place to listen. And it's a blessing and a gift that he does that, because if he left us to ourselves, we would not be who we need to be. We wouldn't even like ourselves. But God, in his mercy, and he even speaks this right here, he says, those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy, and that's a capital N and M, and he's speaking about God. He put him in a stuck, lonely, dark place to be refined, and he developed him to become obedient. He was exactly where he needed to be. Sometimes we're in a storm and we think God's forgotten us, and we're exactly where we need to be. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed day. It's all about Jesus.